Hey, in this video we're going to be making some funky townhouses. First of all, we started off with some a nice pretty brick foundation with a little bit of depth in it. I made like little indentations in it with stairs, which I thought was really cool, just a small little detail. Whenever I make things repetitively, I always try and make them a little different than the last time, because otherwise building is not really creative anymore, it's just copying and pasting. So just adding in a little bit of detail every time I make a foundation gives me the options to create something new and interesting. And when I build, I like to think about what sort of style I want the build to be in. So before I start, I have a vision. Sometimes I draw it out, but I figure out whether I want it to be an angular building or a round building. For angular builds, I put in slanted roofs and lots of sharp angles, hence the name angular. But for round builds, I like to incorporate a lot of curves and warmer colors, where with angular I would use cooler colors and more contrast. So for this build, I decided to make it round. So you can see that for the supports, they're quite round. The quartz comes out and then in sort of bubbles. And I use quite warm tones. Not really, but I added mangrove later, which is quite warm. And I think that round shapes and warm colors go really well together. So we added in the mangrove trimming, which is something that I add in on some builds. I think that it makes it look just a little bit more detailed, and I think it looks nice. So we added those in, and I decided to add in 3 block tall windows for this build, which really accentuates the height, so it makes you think that the building is taller because the windows are tall, and you can see that they're tall because they're the ratios, they're not very wide at all. So your brain goes, oh, that's a tall window, so this must be a tall build. And then for the roof shape for this, I was kind of stuck, so I decided to do what I usually do. So I decided to cap it off by using some upside down stairs. But what I've done before, when I recreated one of the Lego pieces that I had in my house, I'll link the video up in the cards if you're interested to check it out. But I created a very similar roof design to the one I ended up making here, with a nice archway window, and then just a roof going around that. And I think it's really important to take inspiration from things, try new things that other people have done in your own contexts. So then you can, when you get stuck with a build like this, you can draw on your inspiration and your practice and the things that you've tried in the past to figure out something that will look well. So I think that it's really important that as a builder, I take inspiration from all different places, because then I can have new ideas and put old ideas, other people's ideas, into new contexts, which creates an entirely new effect. And then for the window furnishings, I guess, the slabs, I didn't want them to be totally 3 tall. I wanted them to have a little bit of contrast in there. I tried out quartz. I didn't think it looked very good. I think it washed out the sandstone, so I tried birch. That looked fine, but I think that the polished granite that we ended up on was soft enough to not be too much of a contrast, but it made the windows pop. Then for the second build, I sampled some window shapes. I usually do this before almost every build. I think that windows are the most pivotal part of a build. If you don't get the windows right, the entire build won't look good, because builds are basically just walls, windows, and the window furnishing, and everything revolves around windows. So I usually sample what I want the build to look like and the vague shapes and proportions and windows and even like smaller details, because then I can project it up onto a bigger thing, onto a bigger build, and actually have a plan rather than just trying out what works on a really big scale. So here I just combined some previous ideas, previous little details and decorations that I've used before to mix them together, see what works, and then put that up onto a building. I also wanted this build to have a gradient in it, but in order to do that I did start with just a block color of calcite before I then went into texture it later, because I think that it's a lot easier to texture when you actually have the final shape in, especially in creative mode when you have infinite amounts of each material. It's a lot easier to make the big shapes and then go back in later and texture around all the different shapes that you've put in. Then I worked on the window positioning, which, like I said before, is quite a pivotal part of the build. So I always block out where the windows are going and I work my builds around them. So like I've got the facade like wall up, but then I like take it out and like edit it to figure out where the windows are gonna be, because I think that they're so pivotal. And then finally, once I've done the windows and figured out where they're going to be, I put in the texturing and the gradient. So we went from diorite to white wool, and I literally just scrolled through the creative inventory and found all of the white blocks that matched. So we went from normal diorite to polished diorite to calcite to white concrete powder to white wool. And I think that it looks really good because it goes from like slightly grayish but still a like white block to quite fine white, and it just draws your eye up, makes you look up, which I think is really important for tall buildings like this, because when you're on the floor walking past it, you want your eyes to be drawn upwards. So then we just translated all the window decor onto the actual build. I also decided to frame the one section of the build with the left section of the build with dark oak trapdoors, which I think it just made the build look a little bit more like contained. I don't know, it just came as a result of trying things, and I think that it ended up really well. I also think that it's important in build to have continuity in the color palettes, so I use dark prismarine for the window decorations, so I decided to also use that for the roof, because I think that it keeps the color palette constant, because if there's too many different colors going on, your brain will be confused and it will not be able to it's not simple enough for your brain to make it make sense. There's just a lot going on. So that's why I use the very similar colors in lots of different places in builds, because I think that they look better when the color palette is more simple. I also, fun fact, did the back of this build. And then for the roof of the taller section of this build, I just sort of flattened it out. I'm not entirely sold on the roof shape, but I think that it works. It was just sort of flat, and because I didn't really want to do another slanted roof, because it would have just been like really small. So just stone slabs, smooth stone slabs, and I think that it worked. It was simple, easy, made sense. And then finally greenery. I love azalea bushes and moss. They're so good. I also decided to add in a full-on azalea leaf bush along the side of one building, which is a good way to add in greenery to like more urban sort of townhouse situations like this, because then it's like a creeper, it's not like a big tree or anything that you might not see in a city. But I think that it worked really well. So here's the final build. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon for another video.